I'm Rick Leventhal, and this is the Fox Report. If you're just joining us, President Trump has now arrived back in Washington after spending the holiday weekend at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach. He'll be meeting with Senate Republicans Tuesday as they prepare to vote on their version of the GOP tax plan. And that's not the only thing on the agenda. Lawmakers are also up against a December 8th deadline to pass a spending bill to keep the government up and running. The House is also set to vote on a new resolution requiring all personnel to go through sexual harassment training. Meanwhile, one of the lawmakers under fire for harassment is now speaking out. Minnesota Senator Al Franken telling local media he's ashamed and embarrassed, but not stepping down.
The Ethics Committee is looking into all this, and I will cooperate fully with it. Listen, I know I have a lot of work to do to regain the trust of people I've let down. The people of Minnesota, my friends and supporters and my colleagues, and especially everyone who counts on me to be a champion and ally of women.
Joining me now is Morgan Chalfant, reporter for The Hill. Morgan, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Your reaction to Al Franken's interview?
It's certainly a major moment. Al Franken has been silent for about 8 days. This is him coming out and really addressing those allegations publicly. He's certainly saying he's ashamed, taking blame for what happened, though at the same time saying he doesn't really recall some of the photographs that were taken in those instances the same way that the women have recounted them. But I think the major question is this going to be enough for Democrats, for progressive groups that have called on Franken to resign? He certainly says here he's ready to get back to work and won't step down, but it will remain to be seen whether or not there will be more calls for his resignation, especially if more allegations like this come to light. He
said today that this was not something that he would intentionally do, but the acts as described don't sound accidental.
Right. Certainly his explanation has kind of walked the line between saying that the accounts are exactly what happened and accusing the women of lying. He's certainly not doing that, but he's really trying to emphasize that he didn't mean the way that these women felt, but at the same time saying he's apologizing for making them feel that way. So he's certainly walking a fine line in the way that he's answered to these accusations, obviously apologizing to the first woman who came out, Leanne Tweeden, and she has accepted his apology as well. So certainly he's emphasizing that.
But we didn't hear a flat-out denial, and the women's stories sound pretty similar, almost more like a pattern than an accident.
Right. There have been a few women, and several of those accounts have been recounted anonymously, some to the Huffington Post. But yes, Franken isn't denying what actually happened. He's just saying he doesn't remember those encounters. I think one other important point from that interview today is that he was asked whether or not he expects there to be more allegations, and he basically indicated that he didn't know and that he hoped not. So I think it definitely leaves the door open. I think he's being very careful there, because if he is truthful in saying that this wasn't what he intended and that he didn't remember them these ways, then I think he's perhaps worried that, more people will come out and this behavior will be brought to light.
Morgan, based on the allegations and on the photo that Leanne Tweeden released, is it offensive on any level to hear him describe himself as an ally of women?
I mean, I think that he's certainly trying to, again, as I said, walk the line between saying that he's an ally of women and taking responsibility for his actions. So I think that Leanne Tweeden obviously accepted that apology. I think other people will respond probably differently. There will be varying reactions to the way that Franken has handled everything.
Yeah, I guess the question is whether it's forgivable or not.
Right, and I think that we'll see, again, varying reactions to that. I think there will be people that say that they forgive him and that he, is basically welcoming this ethics investigation and taking blame. And I think there will be others that will continue to call for his resignation and call for him to step down.
You're down in Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the buzz down there about Representative John Conyers today?
John Conyers making a big statement today saying that he's going to step down from his post as the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. It's certainly a major step, especially given that Conyers has denied the allegations that have been brought to light in media reporting about settlements that have been made with staffers that have alleged sexual harassment. I think that it's clear that Conyers will continue to receive scrutiny with an ethics investigation pending. And I think that it's definitely going to be a point of focus, especially this week with the House voting on that resolution for the anti-sexual harassment training.
Yeah, you talked about Al Franken walking a fine line today. Nancy Pelosi on Meet the Press this morning, she walked a pretty fine line, too, as far as Conyers is concerned.
Absolutely, yes. She stepped far short of criticizing Conyers. Saying there are one or two accusations and saying that he's an icon and been a champion for women. So certainly Nancy Pelosi not coming out and criticizing Conyers, but at the same time saying she believed and hoped he would do the right thing. Then you have him hours later, of course, stepping down from that position. So I think we're going to continue to see him examined as this ethics investigation continues. Again, like Franken, the question is, will more of these accusations surface? Will he continue to have to, deny them? Will he come out and show some sort of guilt, perhaps? Major questions, especially with those accusations coming out more recently against Conyers.
Morgan, you mentioned a possible vote this week on mandatory sexual harassment training in Congress. It seems like it might be a little late for that.
Well, I think this is their attempt, obviously, at trying to stem the criticism, the outrage over all of these allegations. This is something that's been optional in the past, but obviously they're trying to make a statement with this resolution. Of course, it's one of the many things that Republicans in the House are focusing and the Senate are focusing on in coming weeks. Certainly there's a major agenda, and this is just another thing that they've added to it. So I think it's going to be a very, very busy end to November and beginning to December.
But it almost feels like we're seeing a sea change down in Washington.
It's certainly these accusations and these women coming out and so publicly, it cuts across various fields. I mean, we've seen it first in entertainment with Harvey Weinstein, in politics, the reporting field as well. A lot of accusations made there. So I think it's almost sort of a moment in the culture where we're having this big shift towards women, coming out and feeling emboldened and being able to tell their stories. I don't think this is something that's going to go away. I think it's certainly been a major point of focus in recent weeks, and again with this vote this week, it's clear that Congress is going to be putting the spotlight on it, and obviously with these ethics investigations ongoing as well.
Well, Morgan, we started with Al Franken. Let's finish with Al Franken. Is it your sense that he may or he will survive this test?
I think it's a little too soon to tell at this point. Clearly, he is saying he's ready to get back to work and prove to people that they can trust him again and regain their trust. He's very openly, accepting blame in a way and saying that he's ashamed and really just making a point to try to move past this. But I think that it really depends on whether or not his allies, groups that have already called on him to resign, whether they're going to step up those calls, whether, Democrats are going to stand by him. I don't think that he's out of the woods yet. Obviously, Al Franken, these accusations started to come out right when senators left town. So this will be the first week where they're really back. And I think that will we'll know some things in coming days, but I don't think he's quite out of the woods yet.
Yeah. Okay. Morgan Chalfant, we appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.